Welcome to the Chiefs. The Chiefs is a Whiteark podcast aimed at specifically giving you an insight into what makes great leaders and entrepreneurs in a variety of organisations tick. We call them Chiefs. My name is James Ciuffetelli, and together with my Whiteark co-chief, Joe Hands, we're going to attempt to take you on a journey and talk to as many chiefs across as many industries as we can to give you an insight into A, what makes them tick, and B, what makes their enterprises thrive, and more importantly, what they've learnt along the way. The Chiefs.
We're on!
That's my fellow chief, Joe Hands. So welcome to another edition of the Chiefs, and this is a very special Christmas edition. Welcome, Joe.
Merry Christmas, Ciuffetelli!
I want you've got all the energy of Christmas. Your true love gave you a lot of energy, so well done to Jolie. Now we are going to talk, Joe, all things. We thought we'd have a bit of a special edition of the Chiefs today, and we actually thought Joe and I would have a conversation, a bit of a reflective conversation on all things 2020, what we saw, what some of the insights were, and then fast forward that to, maybe some of the thoughts that we've got and we're seeing in terms of best practice that businesses are following moving into 2021. And then, Joe, it wouldn't be a Christmas edition if I didn't ask you, because you've got that crazy hat on, what your plans are for Christmas. But please wait, let's kick off by just having it's been a big year, Joe. What were some of the things that you saw? Obviously a COVID-dominated year, but were there some insights in particular and reflections that you had in the businesses that you worked on and you partnered with?
Yeah, I think 2020 was not the year that anyone expected. I think what we saw was how quickly businesses were able to pivot and change off the back of a really uncertain environment. And I have a bit of a laugh some days thinking about the fact that everyone has all these business continuity plans, but none of them really stood up when it came to the crisis, right? And I think when you reflect on 2020, and there's a lot to unpack in it, I think kind of there's three key things that I've seen from a business perspective as I've dealt with my clients and helped my clients in the navigation. And one of them is around leadership. And I say that first because I think it's the most important piece, which is, the ability for the leadership in the organizations to be able to take this situation and crisis and work out how to navigate the organization to the best outcome, but how to navigate the people when you've got everyone working from home. And this is where people's leadership either steps up or their leadership just doesn't come to the forefront. And what you see is in the organizations that have got through this the best, it's because they've had the strong leadership to really help them navigate it, right? And so there's been a lot of challenges on how do you lead people from home and who are working from home, and how do you keep people engaged, and people are concerned about their jobs, and so how do you give them some kind of security over that? So that whole leadership piece, Chuff, is I think a really, really big one. I don't know if you saw the same in a lot of the clients we were dealing with at Whiteark.
It's funny, Joe, I couldn't agree with you more. I think leadership is one that's not been spoken about enough in circles. So, we obviously saw, from my perspective, COVID hit and there was an absolute upheaval. It didn't matter initially what state you were in, but what we saw was great leadership across the board in specific domains where leaders in particular were able to actually sort of grasp a hold of, okay, how do we react? Because you're right, you and I have worked on many BCP plans over the years. I don't remember in 2017 talking about 2020 strategy and even BCP strategy and talking about a virus or some medically induced.
No.
We didn't have that in our plans. Anyway, maybe we didn't have the vision and what have you. But the truth is, one of the things I saw in some of the great leadership in some of the organisations that we work with, some of those that we observe and admire, is the way that the great leaders were able to react. So the initial reaction from some of those great leaders was very much focused on people, making sure that they got everybody safely home, making sure that they could get, you had IT and HR departments scampering, and credit to them, right? Getting monitors to homes, would the Wi-Fi stand up? Oh my God, how were we going to run the business? And then, you had the emergence of Zoom and Teams and Google Places and whatever else. So for me, that reaction to the good leaders was a tick. Then you had, I think the great leaders sort of leaned in and said, okay, we're going to be like this for a while. So how are we going to protect our people? We're working. How are we going to help them be resilient? But we've also got a business to run. We've got financial commitments, operational commitments, commercial, and we've got communities to serve or customers to serve. And that's where I saw the great leaders lean in and really say, okay, well, you know what, we've been resilient, we've dealt with it, but now we've actually we've got to get on the road to recovery. And for me, that's what some of the great examples where businesses said, okay, well, we might have had plan A. Yeah. We're going to throw that out and we're going to pivot now and be agile. And we're going to go, for me, some of the definitions were the great leadership groups and what have you pivoted and really were able to adapt their strategy. Yeah. Some of them even created new revenue streams. I think of organizations like Bunnings, they stood up click and collect overnight. It was amazing. All of a sudden, they've got bricks and mortar, people going, but credit to that leadership, the team, and the way they're actually able to stand that up and make it work. And it was probably cobbled behind the scenes. I don't know. We're not close to that one. But now I actually think those great leaders have even moved into another phase, and we'll talk about 2021 in a moment. But they've started focusing no longer on the recovery, but on the new reality. Yeah. Not on, it's totally different, because you know what? They've been able to pivot their strategy. Yeah. And now they're saying, okay, well, how do we leverage that strategy into the new reality so that we actually get back on? Because we could shut down again. But I actually think those organizations that have got those strategies in place and have been agile and been able to pivot it will probably thrive the most. That's kind of the way I saw the year that was.
It's really interesting observation. And I think, I'm really aligned with you on that whole leadership piece. And while, we've definitely had a focus on that from a Whiteark perspective of how to navigate our clients through that period. I think your other point around that pivoting piece, right? So you've got your strategy and you've got your priorities and you've got your targets for 2020 and realizing that you have to pivot. And the pivot is, how do I protect, right, my business so it's going to be able to be here for the future? And how do I capitalize? Is there an opportunity for me to capitalize on the position that we're in? And I think one of the things that we know well from the clients that we've worked with and from the positions that we've had is actually being able to execute some of these changes and things is really critical. So how do you change your processes and operating rhythms and the way you're actually going to market quickly so you can capitalize on the opportunity and so you can protect your business even from a cash flow perspective? And one of the things that I think that we've really spent some time with our clients on at Whiteark is around how do you measure success, right? So what are the key metrics that are lead and lag indicators for your business that you need to be measuring on a daily or a weekly basis to really know when to pivot? Because we're in a period we've never experienced before. And so having the right metrics is really critical.
And I think you're right, Joe. And the reality is having those right metrics, then having the ability to pivot or strategically make some calls around your priorities. Some of them may be similar, some may not, and set some realistic goals around whatever that new set of strategies is. And I think that as we sort of look forward facing, I actually think that's what's going to become important as organizations come back, because the reality is that it's become increasingly challenging, I believe, and we've both seen this, I know we both believe it, to plan 5 years out. I don't think in this current environment you can. No. So consequently, what you're seeing is great leadership and great leadership teams and businesses have got a strategic direction that might be, for 2 quarters and then have a view for the next couple of quarters. Yeah. But they're pivoting, I've got to stop using the word pivot. They're reassessing every kind of 90 days, right? And they're making adjustments accordingly. And I actually think that's going to set those organisations up well. I think, moving forward, we've been having lots of conversations, you and I, and with some of the clients that we're working with. A lot of clients, when we went into the shutdown, pivoted online. We spoke about Bunnings, and some of them did it well, but some of them inadvertently, you've got big restaurant groups that then became big supermarkets online, for specific vertical orientations, But then now that the world's open up again, do they stop that business? They fundamentally created a new strategy for their business because of so now what they've got to do is, okay, do I reset and hold that strategy or don't I? Can I transition some of the business online? Are there new markets that potentially in strategies we should be exploring so that they can make up the void if things change? Something else that I'm really loving is these organisations that have really delved in. There's one organisation that we work with, and Simone and her leadership team are outstanding. They've really delved into focusing on their customers and they're personally engaging their customers. And they're actually looking, it's an online business, and they're really looking to deepen their engagement and their relationship with it. And I think it's fantastic. It's a strong strategic pillar to have moving forward. And I think that's going to allow them to have an absolute clear line of sight of what they should be doing, what the right focus areas are, because they're so deeply connected to their customers that I actually think that their strategy is going to be a winner because they're already there.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, that piece around customer and consumer. And we know what our customers want. We know what our consumers want. And maybe things change a bit over time. But what's happened in the last 6 months is that is just all being thrown up in the air. And so we actually have to go back and deeply engage back with that consumer and customer base and really understand it and reset what they're looking for and reset the business off the back of it. And I think the businesses that do that will thrive out of the back of the changes we've had.
Do you think, Joe, it's interesting? I mean, we spoke at the outset here about, we've got a history in terms of building long-term plans, short, mid, long-term horizons, sort of up to 3+ years out. Do you think those organisations that are able to really quickly, especially for 2021, almost have a multi-strategy or a multi-plan approach? Because in a way, we may get locked up again. So if they build a plan around, okay, what do we do in that situation?
Yeah.
We've got to have a short-term approach to get people back together. It might be different. We might not go back to the offices and what have you like we did before, but there's got to be a plan around that. What do you think? Do you think like that businesses should be planning for at least loosely a couple of contingencies?
I think there's a couple of things. I think that businesses should be planning, to your point, for a couple of contingencies, but I have an overarching view that I think the businesses need to say, where we are now, we would like to get to in 5 years. We would like to have this market share. We would like to be this positioned in the market with high level strategic objectives. And then say, to deliver that, what we know today, to deliver that, we would need to do X, Y, and Z. But to your point, keep assessing, right, on a very regular basis, what actually you need to do to deliver that. So have goals in mind that are more strategic and high level in nature, and make sure that what you're doing is getting yourself to that. In terms of, we don't know what 2021 is going to bring, right? We know that it's going to be a different world, but we don't know what it's going to bring. But I think businesses have learnt from this, they need to have better planning around a range of different things that could possibly happen. And that's financial modelling about what if this happened, what if this happened, and understanding what the impact is. But it's also strategic plans that says, if this happens, or operational plans, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. And you'd hope from this, and in talking to our clients, they are planning and they are thinking like they haven't been thinking before around how to actually think differently. And in the 2020 year that we've been in, people have had to go, actually, I don't know what my forecast is. I don't know where I'm going to land for the full year, but actually these are the different scenarios, and kind of created scenario planning in a lot of organizations that didn't have it. And I think my experience with scenario planning is that you've got to make the scenarios not so broad that it's not actually useful, but it's narrow enough that it's actually helpful to make a decision. Otherwise, you're basically saying, my plan is this, plus or minus 50%, but I have no freaking idea. Rather than, how do I build a scenario plan that actually can help me navigate where I need to go, right? So reflecting on 2020, you go, what a year. I think it's the lessons that you take in, and it's the approach you take into the new year. So everyone's tired and everyone needs a break, and they need to go and lie on the beach and sunbake, and they can't go on their international holidays, but enjoy the sun in Australia. And support the local businesses right across Australia. But, you know, for me, as I think running into 2021, I think as the leaders sit and have a break over Christmas, what their heads should be thinking about is, what talent and capability do I now need in my organization that I didn't have and I don't have? And what I will see is there will be a really big shift in demand for getting that right capability. So there's been a lot of headcount freezes, there's been a lot of organizations laying people off, but we're now going into a new era. And so what does that capability need to look like?
I couldn't agree more with you. The thing I love that you touched on was the consumer or the customer. And it's funny, right? Like, you know, we all talk about being customer centric and what have you. And I spoke a few moments ago about a couple of examples where some clients are working so well with customers. But what we saw in the heart of COVID was everyone had to switch to working online, but companies who either had fortuitously ran their digital transformation or on the fly put the digital tools and platforms in to address that, they thrived. I mean, Zoom completely, their earnings expectations, I think, blew out of the roof. They did so well, right? But the reality is that consumer behavior has probably changed, Joe. And that point you make, that it's changed forever. So you can't go back to one way or the other. And you probably do need to have a strategy. Consumers are going to be more concerned about their health. So, you know, organizations talking to their customers about how they're leaning in. And, you know, I find it interesting in Victoria at the moment, nobody's catching public transport. Right? So what could, you know, metro trains and the like, and it's a tough exercise, but how can you leverage maybe platforms or technology and whatever to talk to your customers about? And it's obvious they're doing deep cleans, they're doing a wonderful job, but nobody's on there. And as a consequence now, traffic, you don't want to drive on the roads anymore because it's out of control, right? So I actually think those organizations who lean in and become even more obsessed about people, not only their staff, but their customers, their consumers. And I reckon that's a big opportunity in the coming year because, you know, I mean, technology can play a part there. There are actually lots of things that you can do to lean in on that, I believe.
Yeah, and that links into that whole communication piece. I think change management and communication is completely underrated in organizations, and how you actually, and it's not a person, it's how does the organization help people navigate through change? How do they help their people understand what's actually going on? And so that the people in the organization don't feel like things are just reactive. They understand how everything links. You know, a lot of organizations have got a lot of work to do to kind of get that piece right. And I think the other thing that links into my kind of talent, you know, getting the right is, I think, operating model, right? I think that an operating model that was working for you at 2020 is probably not going to give you the best possible answer in 2021. And so what do you want to achieve from 2021? And what are the things you're worried about? And what are the risks? And how do you build an operating model for your organization that actually supports that? And to your point earlier, being able to pivot quicker, being able to actually make changes really quickly, how does your operating model give you that?
So I actually think you've led us really nicely. What are your top three? And I'm going to go three, Joe, because you've probably got 33. What are your top three, I'll say tips. What are your top three bits of advice? Really simple for businesses. They sort of go now into Christmas, you know, get a deserved break and what have you with their loved ones, but then they reset and they go again. What things do you think when they go again they should be thinking of? I'm happy to give you some thinking time if you like, but I know you don't need it.
Well, it's just really summarizing back some of the ideas and things I've been saying. But I think people, whether it's your customers, whether it's your consumers, whether it's the people in your organization, how are you going to engage with those people? So what's your engagement strategy with all of your key stakeholders and the people in your organization? And how is it going to make sure that you get the best possible outcome? My second one is data and analytics, because it wouldn't be a podcast with Whiteark without it. Yes, the world has changed, and yes, some of the history doesn't predict the future, but understanding the current trends, understanding what's happening in your industry, understanding the detailed data of all the surveys that have been done in the current environment, and understanding how your business is capitalizing on those. So we know everyone's holding a whole lot of savings, but when they start spending, are you ready? Are you positioned right in the way to make sure that they're actually spending it on your product? And my third one, is really capitalizing on the opportunities. So for every organization, taking the learnings from 2020 and capitalizing on the next year. So what are you going to do differently? What are you going to change in the way you do your operating model? What are you going to do about your people? How's your go-to-market going to be different? How are you going to think about your business differently? Because if you're coming into 2021 and thinking that you're just going to do what you did in 2020, I think you've missed the boat. They're my top three.
People, data, and go-to-market capitalize. I love it. Look, for me, I'm not too dissimilar. Probably, and again, you're right. We talked about it earlier. But the first one for me is, I think business at multiple levels, family practices, enterprise, small business, did an amazing job of innovating through 2020. And they really, the resilience was something else. But I think it's time to take stock and say, okay, which of those innovations worked? Which ones are we going to hold? You've got to always constantly be looking for better ways to do things, for sure. But you can't stay in this cycle of just being completely agile, because I think then you lose focus and your team lose focus and your customers start to forget why you exist. So the first one is leverage the fact that you innovated, but take a step back and say, okay, what's working, what's not?
Yeah.
Second one for me is around use that opportunity to refocus. Okay. Yeah. So most people dived in and really got heavily involved in working in their business. I think it's an opportunity, once you understand what worked, what didn't. Refocus. Best way to refocus is by, and this is the arc. You talk the data, but the arc's all about having a focus and a strategy, having targets set off your data. And then the last one for me is always about, what's your story? Know your why. Everyone started a business and enterprise because they were very, very clear around why they exist, the core of why, their purpose. It's really important to reset that for your industry, for your people, for your customers. So really think about that story and use 2021 to go out and actually start telling that story again through whatever channels. But I am really excited for what I think has been a really difficult year, but a year of learning. And Australian business has been remarkable in the way that it's been able to actually really talk and be quite positive about what 2021 will be. Now, it wouldn't be a Christmas discussion because I noticed that you are wearing I thought maybe you got your hair done.
No, it's a Christmas hat. It's a Santa hat.
So talk to us about your Santa hat. What's happening in the Hans household on Christmas? What's the lead up to Christmas look like, and why do you love Christmas?
So on Christmas Eve, I always make pizza from scratch. So that's my cooking for the year. And
I think the reindeers like it.
The reindeers, you wait till you see the reindeers. I really like it. And then on Christmas Day, I have lots and lots of family things. But until then, I want to introduce you to two people. This is Rupert. He's a reindeer, and he's a Christmas reindeer. And I brought him a couple of years ago. And then I bought the next year another one. So this is Rupert 1, and this is Rupert 2. And they sit on the couch during December and we talk about what we learnt for the year and what the new year's going to bring. And they bring lots of cheer.
So Rupert's R1 and R2 and they're
R1
full of
and
cheer.
R2. And they've got cute scarves, see?
I love it. You are one out of a box. A mother to Rupert. I love it. Well, in our household, Joe, it's a very Italian Christmas. You can see I've got Rupert on my shirt. We've actually just had all of the nephews and nieces. So we've got 3 kids and we have all the nephews and nieces. And they historically do a Santa photo each year to give to the grandparents and the relatives and what have you. But with COVID restrictions this year, they couldn't go to Westfield and do that photo. So yours truly was Santa Claus today.
Oh my goodness. Can't believe it. How much did you get paid?
Well, I had my niece on my lap and I kept saying, ho, ho, ho. I kept saying, ho, 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 in a bottle of rum. And she said, Uncle Jamie, it's not Pirates of the Caribbean, it's Christmas. So then I went and got my shirt and I'm feeling a bit cocktail, Tom Cruise-like this afternoon. But no, we have a big family day at my mum and dad's at lunch. My mother and father cater for about 50 and there's 20 people who are going there. So we'll eat like Romans for a couple of hours and then we'll sleep like Romans for the next 3 and then we'll wake up again to go and eat whatever we didn't eat. But I love it. Love being around the family and we don't do the Rupert 1 and Rupert 2, Joe. We do the the lasagna for entree, and then some meat for main.
And also, I think because of the year that it's been, I think Christmas is extra special this year because it gives people a chance to really reconnect with their family and their friends and people they haven't had a chance to really see during the year. So I think that's the most important thing, I think, that people need to take out of Christmas and have a rest.
Without a doubt. And on that note, on behalf of Joe, myself and the whole Whiteark team, we want to thank our whole army of supporters. It's been an amazing year for us. We brought a dream to life in Whiteark, and we won our first customer, our second customer, and now we've got people working on that dream with us with many, many different fantastic clients. So to everybody who believed in us, thank you. To our tribe of chiefs who've come on board and generously given their time to share their learnings and what have you with our Whiteark community. Thank you. We are so excited about 2021. Be safe, enjoy Christmas, and we look forward to partnering on this amazing journey with your businesses next year.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Well,
ho, 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 and a bottle of rum.
All the happy smiles and the wishes, and I want it all, from the lights to the mistletoe.